Hello, geometry students. This is Mr. Schultz coming to you live from the office. I'm going to walk you through the first practice day of Unit 2. So this unit, we're going to have a rare 2 practice days, and this will be the first, which just like what happened on Unit 1, that means there's going to be no guided practice. So without further ado, let me share my screen and let's get into this lesson. Okay, so far we've only talked about 2 concepts, midpoint and distance. So those are really the only 2 we can practice today. Okay, so it asks us, find the coordinates of the midpoint of each segment. Let's remember, before we look at the problems, our formula for midpoint. The formula is x1 plus x2 divided by 2 for your x's, and then y1 plus y2 divided by 2 for your y's. Okay, so with that formula in mind, let's look at number 1. It asks us to find the midpoint of TU, where T has endpoints 6 and -12. So I'm going to go and label that x1, y1. And U has the endpoints 3, -8. I'm going to call that one x2, y2. Now, I just have to take these and plug into this formula up here. So we're going to have 6 plus 3 divided by 2. And then -12 plus -8 divided by 2. Now 6 plus 3 is 9 divided by 2. -12 plus -8 is -20 over 2. Now I need to try to simplify my fractions. 9 over 2, I can't. I'm stuck. So this just stays 9 over 2. -20 over 2, though, I can simplify to -10. So there's my answer. 9 over 2, comma, -10. Okay. Number 2. They give me the endpoints x, which is at -2a, 3a. So let's label that x1, y1, and y, which is at 0, -1a. So x2, y2. Then we can plug into our formula. Even though there's a's, that's okay. -2a plus 0 divided by 2. That's our x. For y, we're going to have 3a plus -1a divided by 2. Now just treat these a's like almost like they're a dog. They're just going to follow the letter. Follow it everywhere it goes. Or follow the number, sorry. Follow the number wherever it goes. Just like a little puppy dog. So if I simplify the first one, that's going to be negative 2a over 2. At least if I'm just doing the denominator at first. 3a minus 1a is going to be 2a over 2. Now I need to try to simplify the fraction. What's negative 2 divided by 2? Negative 1. So I'm just going to say negative a here. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So this just becomes a. So our midpoint is negative a and a. Hang on 1 second here. There we go. Okay. So that's just finding midpoint. Number 3. Y is the midpoint of xz. X has the coordinates of 2, 4. Y has the coordinates of negative 1, 1. Okay, Y is our middle. Let me get my pen here. Y is the middle here. This is our middle. So if I draw a quick coordinate plane in here, I'll actually do this with arrows because I can. Okay, let's see. Let's make this bright blue. There we go. So there's one axis. Now let's draw our other axis in there. Okay, there's our axes. So we have here a point at 2, 4. So I'm going to go to 2, 4. There's the point X. Y has the coordinates of negative 1, 1. That's right here. There's Y. Now, we said here, since Y is the midpoint, that this is the middle. So I went 1, 2, 3, boom. I need to do that same thing again. 1, 2, 3, boom. That would put my new point right here. That's where Z is. Okay, So now we need to figure out what are the coordinates of z. Z is at -1, 2, 3, -4, 1, 2, -2. So z is at -4, -2. So y'all see how I did that? I plotted x, then I went and got y, which is the middle. If y is in the middle, that means I got to keep going until I stop at z. So there's z. Okay, so now let's get our next set of axes in here. Whoa there, what happened? Okay, we're just gonna have to be happy with that. So yes, it shifted down a little bit. Well, actually, let's fix that. There we go. Okay, so there's our axes. Now it says M is the midpoint of AB. A has coordinates of -2, -3, so I'm going to plot that for A. -2, -3. It's going to be down here. This is A down here. M has coordinates of -1, -2 right here. Here is M. Now, it tells me that M is the middle. M is the midpoint. So this is our middle. Boom, M is the middle. So how did I move from A to M? I went up 1 over 1. So I'll do the same again. Up 1 over 1, and then I stop. That means B has to be right here where I stop in order for M to be in the middle. Well, what are the coordinates for B? We're on the y-axis, so that means B's got to be 0, and then we're down 1, so 0, -1. So that's what I recommend. Plot the 2 points, label your middle, and that one's got to be the one that's just that, in the middle, because it's the midpoint. OBKB. Let's look at the next one. They ask us to find the distances by using the distance formula. Now the distance formula is the one that's our big square root. So x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. That's our distance formula. So they ask us to find the distance to the nearest 10. That's 1 decimal place. between K, where it's -7 and -4. So let's label that x1, y1, and L, -2, 0, x2, y2. Now it's just a matter of plugging things in. So D equals square root, parentheses, it says x2. If I look at what I labeled, -2 is x2. So plug it in there. Minus x1. x1 is a -7 squared plus y2. y2 is 0 minus y1 is -4 squared. Now, you can type, and I would encourage you to type this, everything but the square root, into your calculator. What do I mean by everything but the square root? Don't type the square root. I mean, I literally mean that. Everything but the square root. I'll even show you. Okay, so here's our calculator. I literally want you to type in everything but the square root. So parentheses, -2 minus -7, close parentheses, squared, plus parentheses, 0 minus -4, close parentheses, squared. Boom. It tells me the answer is 41. So that's where we can come back here and say, okay, this is the square root of 41. Now type your square root in there. Square root, you do control and then the x squared. And then we can type 41 in. 6.40312. 6.40312. Now it says to round to the nearest tenth. That's one decimal place. So I look to the next, that next place is a 0, so I just leave it. I look here, what's that tell me? It tells me to leave the 4. 4 or less, let it rest. 5 or more, raise the score. I'll let it rest. 6.4 is my answer. Okay, next one. Found the distance to the nearest 10. There's that 10th again. Between F, which is 9.5, and G, which is -2.2. Okay, so I labeled my points as I read, x1, y1, x2, y2. Now it's time I plug in. So x2 is -2 minus 9 squared plus 2 minus 5 squared. Again, type everything in but the square root. So -2 minus 9 squared plus 2 minus 5 squared. 130. So this is the square root of 130. Now I can go in and do that. So control x squared and then 130. 11.4018. They say round to the nearest tenth, so I'll look at that. The next digit's a 0, which is 4 or less, so I let it rest. This is 11.4. Okay, next one. Number 7. Find QR and ST to the nearest tenth. Determine if QR is congruent to ST. Well, on this one, let's use the Pythagorean theorem. So the Pythagorean theorem is the one that says a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Okay, so let's deal with QR first. Now I need to make a little triangle here to find the distance. So how much did I go up? 1, 2. I went up 2. Then I went over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So for QR, I would say 2 squared plus 7 squared equals c squared. 2 squared is 4. 7 squared is 49. 4 plus 49 is 53. And then to get c by itself, I'll take the square root. So I'm going to need to take the square root of 53. So it'll be 7.28011. So 7.28011 equals c. Now, it says to round to the nearest tenth. So that's the place I want. I have to look over here. That's an 8. That's 5 or more, so I have to raise the score. So QR equals 7.3. There's one of our answers. Now, let's turn our focus to ST. What happens on ST? We go up 1, 2, and we go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think something's going on here. So ST is going to be 2 squared plus 7 squared equals c squared. 2 squared is 4. 7 squared is 49. 4 plus 49 is 53. And by now, hopefully you recognize where we were at to begin with. So ST has to also be 7.3. Now, they're the same, so that means since QR equals ST, then QR, segment QR is congruent to segment ST. There we go. Okay, number 8. The football team has been too disruptive in their classes. So as a punishment, they will have to run either 15 times around the football field or run 40 diagonals. The coaches let the athletes decide, because if they were paying attention in geometry, they would know which one would be the better deal. Which punishment would you choose? Well, let's see here. Let's say we choose, well, we need to calculate it. So perimeter. How do I get perimeter? I add up all the sides. So that's going to be 120 plus 55. So let's see, that one's 120, that one's 55. Plus 120 plus 55. If I add all those up, 120 plus 55 plus 120, 55. It's going to be 350 yards. Okay. Now, before we really get into the punishment itself, we know we're going to need the perimeter. We're also going to need the diagonal over here. We're going to need the diagonal here. So, if I focus on a triangle, just one of the triangles here, I can find the length of that diagonal. I can say that 55 squared plus 120 squared equals c squared. 55 squared is 3025. 120 squared is 14,400 equals c squared. Add those together. So plus 14,400. You get 17,425. And then we've got to take the square root. Oh, whoa. 132.004. So let's just say 132 yards. So the diagonal is 132 yards. Okay. Well, let's see. Let's note that here. The diagonal is 132 yards. So here are the two options. The first option, you run perimeter. How many times did coach say you had to run? If you run the perimeter, you gotta do it 15 times. So 15 times 350. 15 times 350. It's going to be 5,250 yards. Now, let's say you want to run the diagonals. People say they want to run diagonals. How many times did coach say they had to run the diagonal? 40. So 40 times 132. 40 times 132. 5,280. So, which one should you pick? You're going to go with running the perimeter. That was the better deal. Only about 30 yards, but it was still the better deal between the two. Okay, so that was material from this chapter so far. We've only covered 2 days of it, so there's not much there. Let's look at a few review questions. First, they ask us, which is a pair of vertical angles? Well, let's go through the answer choices. A says RVT, so that's this one. Let me change my color here. RVT is this one, and then SVR, that one. Are those vertical angles? No. Vertical angles are on opposite sides of the x's. So no, A is not. Okay, B, SVU. SVU. Okay, and then RVT. RVT. Are those vertical? Yeah, they are. So let's leave them. Let's not cross them out. C says angle VTU. But I don't go to U. That's not that doesn't even exist. That's a bad angle. It doesn't exist. So cross it out. D, UVS, UVT. Those aren't vertical. Cross it out. The answer is B. Okay, number 10. K is the midpoint of segment JL. First thing we need to do, draw a picture. Before we even read anymore, draw a picture. K is in the middle. We got JL on each end. KL is 3x minus 4. So 3x minus 4. JK is 2x plus 1. And they ask us to find a whole bunch of stuff. Well, we know it's the midpoint, so these have to be congruent. Because it's midpoint. K is in the middle. Those have to be the same. Which means to get X, I set these equal to each other. I have to use the fact that the first part is equal to the second part. So let's set our equation up. 3x minus 4 equals 2x plus 1. Subtract the 2x from both sides. Get x minus 4 equals 1. Add 4. X equals 5. There's part of our answer. X equals 5. But is that all they ask us? No. They ask us to find KL. Well, KL's right there, so I have to plug it in, plug it in. KL equals 3 times 5 minus 4. That gives us 11. So KL is 11. Then it asks for JL. JL is the whole thing. KL is 11, which means JK better be 11. 11 plus 11 is 22. So the whole thing is 22. Okay, and the last one. It says angle DEF is shown to the right. What point is the vertex? The vertex is where we turn at. Where do we turn? We turn here at E. So E is the vertex. And then which rays form the sides of angle DEF? We want rays here. I need 2 letters to name a ray. And each of them have to start at the vertex. So it would be ED is one and EF is the other. So ED and then EF. Okay, so that's it for the lesson. Since this is a practice day, that means there is no guided practice. So the assignment's there, hop to it.